Hello, you're watching Uzreport World News with me, Avasan Haydarov. The headlines. Uzbekistan has become the second observer state of Eurasian Economic Union after Moldova. Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Narendra Modi have agreed to strengthen further cooperation. Speed Test Global Index has ranked Uzbekistan 132nd out of 139 countries in terms of mobile internet speed. On December 11th, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev joined an online summit of the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council. Following the meeting, the leaders of the Eurasian Economic Union unanimously granted Uzbekistan an observer status. The event, chaired by the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, was also attended by leaders of Kazakhstan, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia. Moldova participated as an observer state, as well as Cuba, that was invited as a guest. We highly esteem the development of multifaceted cooperation with the EAEU. First, member countries are our main trading partners. In recent years, the volume of trade between Uzbekistan and the states of the Union has almost doubled, Mirziyoyev noted, speaking at a council meeting. Uzbek president considers it's very important to fully utilize the potentials and remove obstacles in trade relations by forming new marketplaces. Second, Mirziyoyev said the economies of the countries complement each other in many ways. Third, transport communications and infrastructure are deeply integrated and closely interconnected. I'm sure that the development of coordinated approaches in this direction will make it possible to more actively use transport corridors and increase competitiveness, Uzbek president continued. Considering all these important factors, the Parliament of Uzbekistan has decided to cooperate with the Union as an observer state, Mirziyoyev noted. In our opinion, this will allow us to understand more deeply each other and better the rapid processes that are taking place within the framework of the association. At the same time, we believe that the development of such a partnership should meet the national interests of our countries, based on the principles of equality and mutual benefit, concluded Shavkat Mirziyoyev. The president of Belarus congratulated his counterpart on joining the Union and expressed his hope that Uzbekistan will not just be an observer, but become a full-fledged member of the Union in the near future. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev have agreed to stand together firmly against terrorism. At a virtual summit on Friday, the parties said they have similar concerns over separatism, extremism, and fundamentalism.
The agenda of the summit included further expansion of political dialogue, strengthening bilateral cooperation in trade, economic, investment, financial, technical, educational, cultural, humanitarian, and other spheres. Prime Minister Narendra Modi sincerely congratulated President Shavkat Mirziyoyev on the election of Uzbekistan to the UN Human Rights Council. The sides, among other topics, talked about the necessity of effective transport corridors and logistics infrastructure, restoration of transport facilities. In the humanitarian sphere, the parties noted their intention to support joint programs in cinematography, national culture and study, restoration of historical heritage sites. They proposed to establish modern medical centers in the regions of Uzbekistan with the introduction of the traditional system of Indian medicine. The Indian side has supported the activities of the Yoga Federation of Uzbekistan as well. In 2019, the trade turnover between the countries comprised around $329 million. Shavkat Mirziyoyev noted a benchmark should be set to achieve a trade turnover of $1 billion in the coming years.
On the same day, Tashkent hosted the digitalization of the ombudsman's work, innovative mechanisms for promoting and protecting human rights and freedoms, online conference dedicated to the 25th anniversary of the Institute of Ombudsman in the Parliament of Uzbekistan. Discussions were held on the cooperation between national human rights institutions and the civil society amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
The event saw 150 participants, including the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the chairperson of the Senate of Uzbekistan, the Speaker of the Legislative Chamber of Parliament, the leadership of the International Ombudsman Institute and European Ombudsman Institute, the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions, as well as the ombudspersons from several OSCE participating states and civil society representatives from Uzbekistan. The high-level event was an opportunity to exchange good practices in the OSCE region, including Azerbaijan, Turkey, Russia, Poland, and beyond, on topics such as the use of contemporary information technologies in times of the COVID-19 pandemic and the experience of interacting with the rights holders and the public during the pandemic.
With the Ombudsman institution, almost since the OSCE was established here in Uzbekistan, quite a number of years ago. In the OSCE, there's a lot of commitments related to ombudsperson institutions, how they should be formed, what their work should be, and of course, they're all about human rights, which is one of the major elements that the OSCE works on as well.
The conference was also the occasion of the OSCE project coordinator in Uzbekistan to sign a memorandum of cooperation with the ombudsperson institution.
Indonesia may launch direct flights to Samarkand. This was announced during the meeting between Erkincan Turdimov, the Samarkand region's governor, and Nunung Rusmiyati, president of the Asita Association, one of the largest tourism associations of Indonesia. The governor expressed his gratitude and readiness to support Indonesian travel agencies in this matter. Ms. Rusmiyati thanked for the warm welcome and noted that Uzbekistan has a huge potential, noting that Indonesians consider it an honor to visit Imam Bukhari's land. We intend to further our cooperation in the fields of pilgrimage, culinary and ecotourism. We are considering special tour routes for our compatriots to travel to Samarkand, Bukhara and Khiva and plan to organize 2 charter flights a week from Indonesia to Samarkand, said the president of the Asita. Mercy Corps, a global humanitarian aid organization, and the Ministry of Preschool Education have agreed to work together in improving nutrition and water supply in Uzbekistan's kindergartens. Yelena Buryan, the head of the international NGO, and Deputy Minister Yuldashev outlined further steps of cooperation. Thus, apart from nutrition and sewage system improvement projects, Mercy Corps will help to upgrade literacy of children via age-appropriate activities, provide training courses to preschool nurses and catering staff for better school service. Karakal, Pakistan and the Surkhandarya region will be the pioneers in implementing the new initiatives. The 5-year program will start next year and cover 410 preschool education institutions. Following the meeting, it was decided to prepare the 2 sides for signing a memorandum of understanding and cooperation. On December 10th, the Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs of Uzbekistan, Rustam Hattamov, held a video conference dedicated to the International Anti-Corruption Day. Having critically assessed the current system, the top official said 11 top police officers were already dismissed from their positions. Having critically assessed the current system, the top official said 23 police officers were sacked and 40 staff members were issued disciplinary warnings in 2020. The meeting heard the reports of some participants on strengthening official discipline and legality, preventing the cases of corruption. Hattamov instructed to combat relentlessly corruption crimes and other negative vices in future. The Embassy of Uzbekistan in Austria, in cooperation with the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, held the Regions of Central Asia Online Business Forum. The webinar saw representatives of over 100 companies registered in Austria and discussed cooperation opportunities in many areas, including hydropower, tourism, agriculture processing, and digitalization.
The diplomatic mission of Uzbekistan noted the measures taken to boost the republic's foreign investment attractiveness and economic opportunities of the Khorasan, Namangan and Surkhandarya regions. Besides, it was mentioned that the ranking of Uzbekistan has been improved by 7 positions in the World Bank's Doing Business annual report. The recent forecast reported that Uzbekistan's GDP will grow by 0.8% this year. The Uzbekistan's delegation presented detailed information on industrial zones, laws determining the conditions and preferences for investment and business in free economic zones, as well as tax and customs concessions granted to foreign investors. Uzbekistan resumed most of the international flights. Citizens of 86 countries, including Austria, are now able to enter the republic under the 30 days visa-free regime.
Uzbekistan has been placed 132nd out of 139 countries in terms of mobile internet speed by the Speed Test Global Index. The situation leaves much to be desired as schools in remote villages and mountainous regions haven't used the internet yet. The state-owned provider Uztelecom, during a meeting held on Friday, announced to provide each school with a high-speed internet communication in the near future. My colleague has more.
According to the director of Uzbek Telecom, currently more than 22.1 million Uzbek citizens have the opportunity to use internet services, with the number of mobile internet users currently staying at 19 million. He said Uzbekistan plans to increase the number to 34 million internet users and cover 95% of its population with a broadband mobile network in the next 2 years. About 20,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable lines would be installed by that time. In 2021, the ministry plans to pay particular attention to connect schools located in remote areas to the internet. In the meantime, according to the head of the information service, Sherzad Akhmatov, the tariff for internet services to operators and providers has been reduced by 36.1% year-on-year, with per megabits now costing $4.3.
The State Asset Management Agency of Uzbekistan said it has received the ISO certification, an international standard on anti-bribery management systems. The international standard helps organizations tackle corruption and incorporates existing, well-established anti-bribery principles, such as guidance within the UK's Bribery Act.
The standard sets out requirements and provides guidance for an organization's management system to prevent, detect and respond to bribery and comply with anti-bribery laws and relevant voluntary commitments. The certification contributes to Goals 8, 11 and 16 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, in particular Goal 16, Peace, Justice and Strong Institutions. The agency received the certification following a rigorous audit of its existing processes and systems. It is now the second state entity in Uzbekistan to take receipt following the Ministry of Justice earlier this year. We are very proud to be the second state entity to receive this ISO certification for our anti-bribery management system. As the significant state privatization program continues, investors, domestic and international, can be confident our operations are increasingly in line with international best practice, said Sunatullah Bekenov, director of the State Assets Management Agency.
Deputy Foreign Ministers of Uzbekistan and the UK held political consultations on December 9th and 10th to intensify the activities between two countries. Deputy Foreign Minister Asita and UK Minister for European Neighbourhood and Americas at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, Wendy Morton, discussed cooperation in all spheres. The parties analysed the measures to diversify the structure of bilateral trade and industry council. Particular attention was paid to interaction within the UAE and its structures, other international organizations.
As hospitals around the country prep for the arrival of the coronavirus vaccine, a mounting U.S. death toll has tempered enthusiasm for the rapid rollout of inoculations, which could start as soon as Monday. Another 2,902 U.S. deaths were reported on Thursday, a day after a record 3,253 people died. Numbers equivalent to those killed in the September 11th attacks and greater than in the attack on Pearl Harbor. On Thursday, head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Robert Redfield, warned that rate wouldn't be slowing down anytime soon.
Probably for the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to have more deaths per day than we had in 9/11 or we had at Pearl Harbor. I mean, this is really, as I said, this is going to be a real unfortunate loss of life. And the reality is the vaccine approval this week's not going to really impact that, I think, to any degree for the next 60 days.
In a matter of days, ultra-cold freezer units in hospitals and pharmacies across the country will be storing the much-anticipated COVID-19 vaccine. Susan Mashney is the Vice President and Chief Pharmacy Officer for the Mount Sinai Health System in New York.
This whole freezer can hold like a couple 100,000 doses. We expect we'll only probably get in the thousands initially, and maybe 5,000 doses at any given time at one site.
For Stephen Dohe, Chief Pharmacist Service at Los Angeles County USC Medical Center, the question is, when will vaccine rollout start to turn the pandemic around?
Well, the vaccine is coming very soon, we anticipate. Is it the light at the end of the tunnel? We definitely hope so. That does require, though, that we reach some critical number, the herd immunity numbers. How fast we get there, we'll have to wait and see.
AMC Entertainment is getting a $100 million shot in the arm to help it survive the effects of the health crisis. The world's largest theater chain said Friday it was getting the cash infusion from Mudrick Capital Management. But will that be enough? The company said it will need at least $750 million more to fund the business through next year. It plans to sell more equity and renegotiate rents in order to avoid filing for bankruptcy. Without a new round of funding, the company said it will run out of cash in January. Like other movie theater operators, it is struggling with delayed Hollywood releases and theater closures, including in two of its biggest markets, Los Angeles, and New York City. In just the period from October 1st to November 30th, AMC said overall attendance at its U.S. theaters plummeted 92% compared to a year earlier. And the struggle is likely to continue next year after Warner Brothers announced it would release all of its films in theaters and on its sister streaming service, HBO Max, on the same day. Like many tied to Hollywood, AMC strongly opposes the move. Investors are worried AMC will collapse under the weight of the changes impacting the movie industry. AMC shares were down 4% on Friday and have lost nearly 50% of their value this year.
Pigeon racing is taking off in China. 8,000 of the birds were released into the winter sky in northern Hebei province last month, one of the many long-distance races holding out a promise of fame and fortune. Pigeons have been raised in China since at least the 1600s, but lately the ranks of hobbyists have swelled. The Chinese Pigeon Association counts around 400,000 members, dwarfing the number in Belgium, where the sport first got its start. Zhao Zhiqiang breeds and trains pigeons in a coop on his parents' roof. He looks for strong wings, a healthy constitution, and bright eyes.
The eyes are the window to their souls. The brightness of their eyes shows how healthy and clever the birds are.
China's breeders have a reputation for their passion for pigeons, but Zhao says there's a financial angle as well.
If we successfully raise a good racing pigeon, it's going to be very expensive. It'll be worth a lot of money.
Bids flew at a recent auction in Beijing. One pigeon, a racing champion, sold for more than $750,000. For breeders like Mr. Ying, who bought 6 birds at the event, money is not an obstacle.
I'm in love with pigeons. That's it, in a nutshell. Pigeons come first in my heart. My wife and children are second and third.
The recent surge in enthusiasm for pigeons has pushed prices higher. One breeder made headlines last month when he splashed out $1.9 million for this pigeon, named New Kim, at an auction in Belgium. Besides the cost of the birds, there's also the upkeep. One pigeon fancier in Shanghai, Mr. Yu, spends more than $30,000 a year on his flock of 500. All worth it, he says. One of his pigeons, Little Ancestor, took first place in the recent race in Hebei province.
This pigeon broke the record in the national competition. It is unprecedented for a young pigeon to fly back in just one day.
A feat, he said, that still brings him joy.
Another Hong Kong democracy activist has been charged under the city's national security law, this time media tycoon Jimmy Lai. The 73-year-old has been accused of colluding with foreign forces, according to his Apple Daily newspaper on Friday, who cited a police source. Lai has been an ardent critic of Beijing. He is currently the highest-profile person to have been charged under the sweeping new law, which was placed by China's national government on the city back in June. Apple Daily is a popular tabloid known for its feisty critique of China and Hong Kong. The security law punishes what Beijing broadly defines as secession, subversion, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces, with up to life in jail. It has been widely condemned by the West and human rights groups as a tool to crush dissent in the semi-autonomous city. Authorities in Hong Kong and Beijing claim it is vital to plug gaping holes in national security defences, exposed by months of sometimes violent anti-government and anti-China protests over the last year. Jimmy Lai's Next Media Group is considered one of the key remaining bastions of media freedom in Hong Kong. He was denied bail earlier this month following his arrest on a separate charge of fraud related to the lease of a building that houses Apple Daily. Lai had been a frequent visitor to Washington, where he has met officials, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, to rally support for Hong Kong democracy, something that's prompted Beijing to label him a traitor. Hong Kong police did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
It's the company behind the strangely lifelike four-legged robots. Now Boston Dynamics is about to get a new owner. Hyundai Motor and its chairman are jointly buying 80% of the US-based firm from Japan's SoftBank Group. The deal values the robot maker at $1.1 billion. Boston Dynamics creations have tried everything from herding sheep to sniffing out radiation in Chernobyl. This year they've even enforced social distancing.
Let's keep Singapore healthy. For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you.
The firm has, however, struggled to build a commercial business. Now Hyundai sees an opportunity. It wants to use the robot technology to expand automation at its unionised car plants. The tech could also play a role in designing self-driving cars, drones and delivery robots. Hyundai says it sees robotics making up a fifth of its future business. Analysts say the challenge will be to show Boston Dynamics can be a moneymaker and compete with cheaper Chinese rivals. The company was spun out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1992. It was later bought by Google before being taken over by SoftBank in 2017.
The Dow and S&P 500 each suffered their first weekly declines in 3 weeks, and the Nasdaq was down for the first week in 4 as stalled stimulus talks overshadowed a banner week for IPOs. Blue chips managed to squeeze out a gain Friday thanks to Disney, but the S&P 500 and Nasdaq ended the session lower. Investors are waiting and hoping for another stimulus package out of Washington, but are worried in the meantime about the pace of the health crisis, says Riverfront Investment Group's Kevin Nicholson.
The vaccine has been great and has been priced into the market, but what the market is looking at today is the fact that we are not, that the number of cases keeps going up. And that seems to be the problem because it doesn't feel like we're going to get this under wraps very quickly.
It was all zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay over at Walt Disney. Investors pushed the stock to a record high after the entertainment conglomerate predicted it will have up to 260 million customers for its Disney Plus streaming video service by 2024. Shares of Disney surged 13.6% in the biggest one-day gain in a dozen years. Shares of Netflix, which is still by far the streaming service to beat, finished higher despite the competitive threat. Not so for AMC. The world's largest theater chain warned Friday it will run out of money to cover expenses as early as January. Like all movie theater operators, AMC is struggling with delayed Hollywood releases and theater closures, including in 2 of its biggest markets, Los Angeles and New York City. The stock lost ground on the news.
You may find more on our social media platforms and website. Goodbye.